Hello, my name is Brandon and I am a field application engineer with FARO Technologies. Today we are going to be talking about the Stream app that comes with your Focus Premium that is available on iOS and Android devices. This Stream app allows you to visualize where you are scanning. It gives you the confidence to leave the scan site knowing that you've captured everything you need, and it allows you to pre-register things and align them in the right place. So when you bring it into our software, it's already going to be pre-aligned. So it's going to save you a lot of time and give you that confidence. So the first thing we need to do with the Stream app is, of course, download it. You can find that on our knowledge base site for FARO Knowledge Base. And once you download it, the next thing you're going to do is make sure that you go to your settings and manage. Go to General Settings, WLAN, and make sure that the mode is set to access point as well as the status is on. That's going to allow you to connect your iPad or your phone to the device and control it from there. So now that you've done that, you can then go to your settings on your device and set up your Wi-Fi to connect to your serial number of your scanner. Make sure that you connect to your serial number and not another person's scanner, especially if you have two scanners out in the field. You want to make sure you're controlling yours. So I've made sure that I have connected to mine. It will ask you for a passcode the first time that you log into it. That's just going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to just log in there. Once you do that, you can go to your Stream device, and I just went on to Stream, and it's actually going to make sure that your scanner changes the UI. You're only going to have the play button as well as the inclinometer to be used here. So you can still select the inclinometer and the play button, but that is it, because everything else will be used on the Stream device. So now we need to set up our project on Stream. As you can see here, we can scroll this up, and here is our Stream project, cluster, and profiles that we can set up. For our project, we can very easily just either select a project that we've already worked on, or we can hit the Add button in the bottom right corner. Selecting the Add button will let us click on the project name and change that. So for this one, we will call it Stream. Now I can select a scan profile if I already have one set up, but you can always change this after this, so that is not a priority. If you want to, you can take a photo to show the project area, and that will show up inside of Scene. You can also use GPS location if you're outside to better just contact where you're at. Now, with the automatic file-based name, as you should know, you should always set a file-based name that is unique to that project. So the automatic file-based name uses the project name and just adds scan at the end of that, making your life a lot easier. So now that we've set up our project and we can see that it's selected by the blue little check mark there, we can then go back and see that project is what we're working with. If you want to, you can also add clusters inside of here as well, but for this project, we won't be using that. That is for larger projects. Scan profiles. This is going to be a little bit different than if you use the scanner head to control the scans. The scanner profiles need to be set up instead of you changing how the parameters work. So these profiles are pre-defined areas. So you can see here, I have accelerated, standard, and extended, which are the usual presets that a lot of people will use to start. But we also have the flash profile if you've bought that subscription, as well as these ones that I've created myself. So I can just click on the icon and it will select that. Now if I click on the actual arrow over there, that's going to allow me to come in here and I can just turn the color on, and now I can change the name if I want to. So all of these settings should be familiar to you if you've already done them before. So for me, I'm going to select the PanoCam option, HDR, and I am just going to say accelerated, pano, stream, and now, oops, let's just back that up, pano, stream. And now that I've set that up, I've set my settings that I want, and I hit the check mark in the top right corner. That is going to allow me to have that profile at the ready now. So for my first scan, I am just going to select the accelerated, non-colorized version of this profile. The last thing at the bottom we see here is the devices selection. This is just going to allow us to disconnect or make sure that our scanner is connected to the right, our device is connected to the right scanner to begin with. And now that we've set it up, we are ready to take our first scan. So we can either hit the play button on the actual scanner, or we can hit it straight on the app. So I'm going to first select it, let it do its thing. And once it starts actually scanning, we will see that populate in the grid. So here it goes, doing its thing, and you're going to notice that it comes in blue. So that's just showing what it's actually capturing. And you can move around with one finger, just moving around. You can rotate with two fingers or zoom in with two fingers, just like a regular app on your phone. So it should be very familiar to you. And now that that is done, it's going to get some sensor information from that first area. And it's still returning to its original position now. So we're just going to wait for it to finish up. And there it is. That is the first scan. If I want a best practice to be done, I can click on that scan, unlock it, and rotate it so that it moves to that same little grid area. This is just going to make our lives easier. Once you get into Stream, the auto clipping boxes will be lined up with this, just making your life a lot easier. So once again, the navigation is very easy. We've taken our first scan, and we're going to go over to our next spot here. So I'm just going to pick it up and move. All right, so we moved our scanner. We're going to make sure that our legs are fully out. We can see that the Stream device, while I was moving it, was giving us the inclinometer error in that top right area. It was just telling us that there was an error. That is not interactable. You would always go to the scanner and make sure that you see what's going on there. So just looking at our area once again, we can see that we scanned in the middle of the room. We moved a little bit to the left, so we should see that our scan shows up somewhere over there with our next one. So I'm just going to hit play again. And how Stream works is it's going to first put the scanner's position from the last scanned location. So that means that it's going to look like it's off at first. But in actuality, it's just going to place it there, and then it's going to look at the geometry of the room and try to pre-place it where it thinks it should go. Stream isn't always perfect, but it does a pretty good job in most areas. And even if it did place it wrong, we can help it out. And I'll be showing you that feature a little bit later today. So there we go. It placed it where it needs to be. It says registration completed, but we as the scanner aren't done there. We want to make sure that it's actually placed correctly. So if you are ever going into a difficult area, a good best practice is to use your little view cube in the top right corner and look at the elevation. Now you're not looking to make sure that it's absolutely perfect, but you do want to make sure that it's at least aligned pretty correctly. And we can see these are definitely aligned where they need to be from the front view as well as this top view area. All right, so now we're going to, once again, go to the next area. All right, so we have made it to our next part of the scan, and we want to make sure those legs are spread apart once again so that the inclinometer is where it needs to be. Of course, if you are on uneven ground, make sure you check that inclinometer on the actual scanner itself. Now this time, I'm going to use the bottom right button with the 3 little level bubbles, and I'm going to click on that to get my profiles. I'm going to choose the standard pano or the accelerated pano, whichever one I want. I can go back and forth, and it's very easy to switch as long as they're pre-set up. So for this one, I'll use the accelerated pano and just scan again. This time it's going to have color capture coming from the panoramic camera. So once again, it's going to scan first from my last position. And the way Stream works is it uses the last 3 positions to try to put it where it needs to be. So in this scenario, it's just using those 2 scans to try to position it. Once again, if I want to, for my next scan, I'm not going to use color. I can come in and switch. I can also look at the scans list in the bottom right and see my 3 scans that I've already taken. So in the background, this is placed while I wasn't even looking at it. So I just make sure that it actually placed it correctly, and I'm good to go. Once again, I have time to look around and view it. If I turn my position there, I can use that top right axis looking button to get me back to where the rotation is. In here, I can also add an annotation if I want to, and I can just type out scan 3 or whatever I need to, so that someone that is actually using the stream data, once they bring it into scene, they'll be able to see that annotation, and you can even take pictures as well. So now that I have finished this scan, once again, I'm going to transition. But this time, sometimes in the field, you make mistakes and you jump too far, or you go to a place where without a lot of overlap to your last scan positions. So I'm going to demonstrate that by going into a room, closing the door that doesn't have a lot of overlap, and then I'm going to bring that in with the next scan. So I'll be seeing you in a second. Alrighty, so I have positioned the scanner right around here, which you can see with this crosshair that I put on my iPad. That crosshair is going to be something we talk about a little bit later, but I've positioned it in there, and then I've closed the door. So I have almost no overlap, which of course is necessary for this type of a registration. So let's just put, once again, I'm going to change my profile to have color. I'm going to have it on internal, and I'm just going to put accelerated color on here just to talk about a few things while we let this run. So I've started my scan. Once again, it is trying to place it from the last 3 scan positions, but this is not going to have any overlap. So it's going to either try to place it somewhere it shouldn't be, or it's going to say failed to complete the registration. And that's where we can come in and help it out. So that's going to be something we do in just a few minutes. While this is going in the background, I can look at my settings. In here, you can turn on dark mode or light mode, depending on where you are. This manual registration distance limit is something we can change to where if I did position the scanner somewhere and then I tried to make it register again, it will only change within the 5 meters. So it will only try to move it within 5 meters. So I can turn that down or up, depending on how confident I am with where I placed it. So while we were talking about that, we can see it totally placed it in the wrong area, which is exactly what we wanted in this scenario. I can help this out by clicking on this, and dragging it on over. If I really needed to, I could also hit this lock button in the top right corner and then move this around to where I wanted it to be, and then unlock it again to move my scan around. Now, it's still taking color capture, but it is done with the capture of the data. So I'm still able to do this while it's getting color. I'm going to, of course, look at my elevation view, and would you look at that, it was out of line. So usually I like to do my elevation view first, and then come in here and mess around with this. And then instead of hitting the little top right button, the little cloud button to automatically register it, I am going to click the lock to just lock it into place, and then I'm also going to click the eye to just stop myself from seeing it. So it just finished. I can now move it to somewhere where I can connect the scans. Let me do that really quick. Okay, so whenever you're trying to connect your doorways, it is best to do a doorway scan. But in this scenario, I'm just going to place it so that there's just enough overlap to ensure that the area that we didn't have enough overlap has overlap with everything else. And I talked about that crosshair for a second. I can use that crosshair, and what that crosshair actually does is it tries to place the scan position there is what you would think it would do, but it tries to use the closest 3 scans. So that means that if I put it over here, or where it was actually going to be, it's going to use stream scan 11 to try to place it. So in this scenario, I'm just going to use these because these have already been placed, even though that's obviously not in the right position. So that's something to get used to. Just going to come over to the side to get out of the way of the scan, make sure it has overlap, and I'm going to change this back to the non-colorized version. So we're just going to let it scan. And once again, a few things while it's scanning. You can come in here, you can delete scans, you can put them in clusters, you can unlock them, hide them. If you ever lose connection to your scanner and it didn't fully download your scan, you can go in here and click on a gray eye and it will re-download it. So no worries if you accidentally lose connection. So we can see right there, it placed it pretty well. If I want to, I can even line that back wall up a little bit more. And you'll see when I hit that automatic registration button, it moves it again. So sometimes I'll just come in and help it and then click the lock key. Now that I've gotten my 4 scans to help out my 5th scan to help out my 4th scan, I can unlock, or I can view and then unlock my scan, try to hit that registration button, and once again, you'll see that it had a little trouble there just because there's not a ton of overlap. So in this position, I'm just going to lock it into place, and then once I get into scene, I can use that new interactive registration to tie those together a little bit better. So once again, stream is going to be as good as you're still scanning. It's not going to solve all your issues, but it is going to help. So we're going to do one last scan to really wrap this up. All right, and back to our last scan location. Setting up our legs just like we have been. And once again, we can just hit the play button to start, but before you do, since we've already taken 2 scans, we can use that crosshair again. That crosshair is very good for closing your loops if you end where you began, or if you go down a dead-end area and then come back. So make sure you're using that crosshair, or else it will not place it correctly. It'll place it somewhere where you don't want it. So hit that to end it off. And while this is going, just once again, the Stream app helps you visualize exactly where your scans are. It helps you from a top view and even from an elevation view. And then it's going to allow you to leave with confidence. We can see in this area, I didn't get as much of the back room or even anywhere on the left side of the studio. So now I know I can either go over there or I just don't need it, and I know that I don't need to worry about it. And lastly, when we jump into scene, as long as we do a project transfer, this is going to be taken and aligned properly. Or you can upload it by connecting to your cloud-based network and then uploading right at the bottom. So I can download the scans to the iPad, upload to the cloud-based platform, and then someone else can download it there. And that about wraps it up for the stream overview. So I hope that you learned something new. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us.